And the Israelites, obviously coming from the mountains, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Hebron, they're all there in the back. They would probably look for shelter in the more eastern side of this front line.
That is amazing. Coming back 3,000 years to the same area where the Bible took place, where the events and figures of the Bible took place, we can actually stand these days.
We can pinpoint it.
And see the exact same topography. This is the geography of the Promised Land. It's unbelievable.
Yes, you are going to be trialed. Yes, you're going for a competition of knowledge of the text. But there is another whole dimension through archaeology and topography and historical geography of locating those sites. This is what we are mostly passionate about. That's the magic, the connection between the text and the land. But let's continue with the battle. Okay, so there are two forces. How do you settle this conflict? They're just going to stand and shout one another forever?
Talk, negotiate, maybe?
Or perhaps the Bible presents the Philistine initiation.
So this guy comes over here, comes down, and this is what it says. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why do you come out and set your battle in array? Am I not a Philistine? Are you servants to Saul? Choose your man for you, and let him come down to me. And if he's able to fight with me and kill me, then we'll be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us.
That sounds fair.
But who's that guy?
Wait. First of all, is this a fair deal?
It's a fair deal.
Not the whole armies. Mano a mano, okay?
Yes.
Your guy and my guy.
But that's before we know who the guy is.
Okay, but reading just this, it sounds like a fair deal.
It is a fair deal.
Except that who are we talking about?
So we're talking about this guy.
Hint, his name is Goliath.
And let's see how the Tanakh describes him. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. His height was 6 cubits and a span.
Oy vey.
Oy vey. What is that, Danny?
Okay, a cubit.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a biblical cubit, about 45 centimeters. Should we demonstrate?
Let's do that.
Okay, 1 cubit.
2 cubits.
2, 3,
4,
5,
6.
and a span. That's his height.
That's his height.
Oy vey.
But it's not only that.
Okay, and now the armor.
And he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was clad with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass.
Okay, how much is 5,000 shekels? Okay.
So what's a shekel?
Wait, what's a shekel? I have a shekel here. Here's a 50 shekels.
Okay, that's paper.
Okay. That's obviously paper money of our times. In ancient times, a shekel was a unit of weight to measure valuable metal, especially silver. And the standard was 11 and somewhat grams. It was even used by the Mesopotamian system. It was called shiklu. Okay, so if we know the standard of shekel to be about 11 grams, how much is 5,000 times 11 and somewhat grams?
A lot.
About 50 kilos, or
Wow.
over 100 pounds.
That's insane.
Just the weight of the armor, okay? Let's take, for instance, this rock. How much is this? This is maybe 15 kilos. 3 times the size of this stone is just the scale, the weight of his armor.
So he looks like, okay, huge.
That's a
scary.
mammoth.
It is. Look what happens next.
Okay, we need a volunteer now.
We
Wait, there's
No,
more about the
yeah.
armor. Okay.
And he had graves of brass upon his legs, and a javelin of brass between his shoulders. And the shaft of his spear was like the weaver's beam. And his spear's head weight 600 shekels of iron.
Oy vey.
And his shield bearer went before him. That's Goliath. Does that sound scary?
He was so massive that he needed an assistant.
That is like 4 Hulk Hogans walking
Okay.
around.
And this guy probably stood right there on the top of the Philistines' camp on the summit of Azekah. And now the Israelites have to send their best men. And I can only imagine Saul goes like, okay, we need a volunteer. Who wants to volunteer? And
Not me.
no one. Okay, here's the deal. Anyone who takes the challenge, tax exemptions for his whole family,
That's nice.
and my daughter.
Wow.
The
but
princess.
Thank you, but no thank you.
And still no one stands
No
up.
one stands.
What's going to happen here? And in the meantime, I wish to remind you, Goliath is standing there laughing and mocking and cursing the gods of the Israelites. But no one is taking the challenge until...
But wait until. Look what happens to Saul when he hears the mocking of Goliath. Listen to this. Vayishma Shaul v'chol Yisrael. And when Saul and all of Israel heard those words of the Philistine, Goliath, they were dismayed and greatly afraid.
Okay, it admits the fear of this amazingly armored, massive, Michael Jordan, I think, was 2 meters and something.
And 14, 15 centimeters?
6 cubits and a span is about 2 meters 70. That's like nearly 9 feet. Okay?
That's insane.
Even today, a guy walking at this height today would be a sensation. Okay? The bottom line is no one is willing to take that challenge until a young redhead shepherd steps into the scene.
This is beautiful.
Okay, and how do we know of how he looks? The Bible tells us. Admoni yefe einayim. Admoni probably means a redhead, a good-looking, and his profession is a shepherd.
He's a shepherd, he's a musician, he's a warrior.
And his name?
Before his name, he kills. Remember who he kills?
As a shepherd, he kills a lion and a bear, and his name? David ben Ishai, who is actually arriving to the scene from Bethlehem, his hometown, for the sole purpose of providing food for his older brothers who are warriors in the camp here. Which I find that to be quite interesting because it seems to indicate Saul is not really heading a proper army. Each family, each tribe has to arrange its own supplies. That's more like a militia.
Right. It's not a united army. You don't see unity. You don't see too much force over here.
Yeah, they kind of gathered, got the tools that they could manage. They probably had very few metal weapons, but they gave it the best shot. And David comes into this to provide also some of the supply. And when he sees the disgrace of the cursing of the God up here on the mountains and everyone's just sitting there, he goes to Saul and says,
that's a no-go.
Let me take the challenge.
You?
And Saul looks at him probably and says, yeah, sure, go ahead. He actually offers him his armor, Saul's armor, which is in a way a metaphor because eventually David will take his crown. But David tries it and takes it off. That's not his style. He doesn't walk heavy armed. He has to maintain his agility for what he is planning.
He looked like a schmerl with it.
Yes.
The Tanakh describes.
He walks into the battle site like a shepherd, except that as he steps down into the valley, he picks a few pebbles from the brook.
Okay.
And when he gets close enough to Goliath, who in the meantime probably also went down to the valley, when Goliath sees him, read the text, okay? Goliath is amazed. No, he's
offended.
He feels humiliated. This is the best you have? Read this.
Akelev anochi. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog that thou come to me with sticks?
Okay.
And the Philistine cursed David by his God.
And this is what he's going to pay for. According to the Bible, it's the cursing of the gods of Israel that triggered David, and David gives him a speech. Shall we read this?
Please, let's do that. Beautiful speech.
Your English is better than mine. Your Manchester British
Don't
accent.
be fooled by the
Nothing
English
like
accent. He's
James.
fooled by the English accent.
Go for it.
Then said David to the Philistine, Thou come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come with thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast tundered. This day will the Lord deliver thee into my hand, and I will smite thee, and take thy head from off thee. Wow.
Yes.
And I will give the carcasses of the host of Philistine this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all of the earth
may
know that there is a God in Israel. Wow, 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 wow.
How does he get all that courage?
That's faith,
What's
that's
his
belief.
secret weapon? Okay, and then they
Look at
get
the passion.
close to one another.
Incredible.
David pulls out his secret weapon. In his bag, he has these pebbles, which he attaches.
As he arrives.
Yes, read on.
And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hastened and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag, and he took thence a stone and slung it and smote the Philistine in his forehead.
Whoa!
And
A direct hit!
Bulba pony.
For your own safety, I kept it in the other hand. It's okay.
And the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell upon his face on the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him.
Yes, he runs
Wow.
to Goliath. He takes Goliath's sword out of the socket and he cuts his head off, puts it up in the air, and the Philistines probably here see their F-16, their Abrams, the most valuable machinery that they had is neutralized. And they now all get chicken scared.
Once the lead is gone, the people are scared.
Wait, didn't we have an agreement?
What was
Wasn't
that?
there an agreement? You're supposed now to be enslaved to the winning side.
Oh, but will they respect the agreement?
Will they?
I doubt that. So what
Read
happens
on.
next? And when the Philistines saw that their mighty man was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until they got to Gut and to the gate of Ekron.
To the gates of
Gat
Ekron
and Ekron. We mentioned that.
And we know from archaeology where they are. Gat is right around us. I wish the camera could turn over the hill to show you Tel Asafi, which since the 1990s
A
is
stone
believed
throw
to
away
be-
from where we are.
Yes, and Ekron is also not very far away from here. Okay, Gat and Ekron.